Hello, my name is Baina Hopkins, and today I'm presenting a video presentation on ethical and cultural competent research for Dr. Robles' Quantitative Research Methods course. Within this video presentation, we're going to discuss the meaning of ethical research, importance of cultural competency, guidelines and framework for ethical and cultural sensitive research. I've also included an example of an unethical study that was conducted here in the United States. I want to point out the importance of using ethical research and how unethical research has a negative impact on the community in which the study is conducted. But first, we're going to talk about ethical research and what it means to social work. Ethical research in social work means treating participants with respect, honesty, and fairness. It means protecting the participants, ensuring that the information we gather from them remains confidential, making sure that participation is voluntary. A key component of ethical research is being transparent. As social work researchers, we need to explain the purpose of our research. We need to let them know what will happen during the research and how the results will be used once research is completed. It's also important as social work researchers that we understand our responsibility that we have to these vulnerable groups, that we protect them, and that we build trust and rapport within those communities in which the research is being completed. That brings me to the example of an unethical research that was completed here in the United States, and that takes me to Tuskegee, Alabama, where in 1932 they started the Tuskegee syphilis study. And it was abruptly stopped by the government in 1972 after it was leaked to the press that they were using unethical methods to complete this study. And the unethical method basically was transparency, right? The researchers were dishonest with the participants. The participants were to believe that they were engaging in a study about bad blood. In all actuality, the study was about African American males with syphilis and how it affects them when they're untreated with syphilis, for syphilis, excuse me. And so this took place in Tuskegee, Alabama at the Tuskegee Institution. It involved the U.S. Public Health Service and the CDC. The study included 600 African American males from Alabama. They were uneducated farm workers. 399 of them had syphilis, 201 didn't. These participants were deceived by the researchers. Like stated before, they were unaware of the true purpose of the study. Treatment was intentionally withheld from them because in 1942, syphilis was being treated by penicillin, and it was easily available for anybody that needed the treatment. However, the participants in the Tuskegee syphilis study were unaware that they had syphilis, and the researchers who did know that they had syphilis did not provide them with the information or provided them with treatment. So it went untreated. These men could not have given informed consent because they were unaware of the true purpose of the study. These men were married, had children and wives. And so as a result, once this information was leaked to the press, the participants of the study sued the U.S. government and they settled for $10 million. They offered the families and the participant lifetime benefits and health care. To show you the long-lasting effects that this unethical research had on the African American community in Alabama, the last person of the offspring from this study just died in 2009. So it started in 1932 and they just died in 2009. And also, it built distrust within the African American community across the United States, really, about the distrust in government and medical treatment in the United States. So this had truly had a long lasting effect on the African American community, especially in Alabama, because of this unethical research. Okay, so now I want to discuss the importance of cultural competency. Cultural competency is essential in research because social workers, we work with such a diverse group, right? We work with everybody in the field of social work. So if researchers ignore culture, they may misinterpret results or cause harm. Respecting cultural values, beliefs, and practices allows participants to feel understood and valued. And at this time, I like to give an example from my own cultural background to point out the importance of cultural awareness. So I am from New Orleans, Louisiana, and it is custom in New Orleans that you speak to everyone when you're walking past them, or if you enter into a room where someone may be, especially if that person is older than you, if it's an adult. You speak to them and you greet them good morning, good evening, or good night. That shows a line of respect. And when you don't do that in New Orleans, it's perceived as disrespectful. So when I left New Orleans and went to school in Mississippi, I still was engaging in this practice, saying good morning, good evening to people. And when they wouldn't respond to me in the manner that I'm accustomed to in New Orleans, I thought that these people, I did a bias, right? I lumped them all together and believed that people from this part of Mississippi were just rude without knowing, understanding the fact that that's not a part of their culture. I entered into their culture and I should have been aware that, hey, this culture doesn't do this. Vice versa, if a researcher from Mississippi comes into New Orleans and conducts this research and they walk into a room with a person in their 60s or 70s and they're in their 30s and they don't say good morning, good evening to this person, that older person is going to believe that they're being disrespectful, or they're going to have an attitude, or think that that person, the researcher, has an attitude. And so then from there, that researcher could misinterpret the behavior that the person from New Orleans is displaying because they believe that the researcher disrespected them. And so now we have this misinterpretation of results, and it creates harm because now this person doesn't want to participate in our study. So this is just an example of how important it is to be culturally aware of where we're conducting our studies and understand the groups that we're studying. Culture is so important because it shapes who we are as individuals, how we cope, how we live, how we make decisions. So a culturally aware researcher, especially in social work, is essential to ethical research. Another cultural competency example brings us back to the Tuskegee syphilis study, where researchers actually used the institution and staff members from the community in which the participants came from. So this made it where the participants felt comfortable working with the individuals that came from their community, the institution that they trusted within that Black community in Alabama. So the cultural norms, biases, all of those things could have been avoided. The awareness of the cultural norms were there because these individuals came from that same community. So even within this study, even though it was unethical, they still understood the importance of cultural awareness. Guidelines and framework for ethical and cultural sensitive research. I propose that there are three simple but strong guidelines. First one is respect and protection. Always protect the participants' rights, ensure confidentiality, and get informed consent. Respect includes using clear language that participants can understand. Cultural inclusion, researchers should learn about the culture of the group they study. And that goes back to my example of New Orleans culture. This includes consulting with community leaders. In the Tuskegee study, they used the Tuskegee, institution to work with the individuals within the community, adapting questions to fit culture norms. They used staff members that were a part of that culture to provide the treatment and avoiding biases. The third is evidence-based practice. Researchers' decisions, should be guided by tested methods and past studies, right? For example, the National Association for Social Work Code of Ethics, they emphasize on evidence-based practice, right? That we should use evidence-based practice when conducting social work. So when we're doing our research, we follow that same model that it has to be evidence-based research that has been tested, methods has been used in the past, so that we can ensure that we're using the proper evidence to base our results on or practices on. By combining these 3 points, researchers can create a framework that respects ethics and culture, that not only produces valid results, but also strengthens trust between researchers and communities. In summary, ethical research in social work means protecting participants and being transparent. Cultural competency ensures that research is fair and respectful to all groups. By following clear guidelines based on respect, inclusion, and evidence, researchers can build knowledge that benefits individuals, communities in a real way. Thank you for your time.